Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast. Another Group 1 weekend coming your way. We're going to be previewing. And just a heads up for next week, we've got a couple of podcasts coming your way. So that will be on Wednesday for Thursday, Friday's action. And then there'll be another podcast on the Friday for Saturday, Sunday, which is Irish Champions Weekend and the Ledger as well. So it's coming thick and fast. Keep an eye out for all of those. And let me tell you about the Other Side of the Fence episode 2, which lands on Tuesday. In fact, Charlie Poste is probably the best person to tell us about it because he features in it with Ollie Murphy. Charlie, this is the having bought a horse or horses from the sales. This is the breaking in of the horse. Just tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, the series that Matchbook are doing with Ollie is basically, like you say, running through the whole process from buying the horse at the sales to then eventually, I think, getting onto the horse having its first run on the track. And so the second episode is where my wife and I come in with our yard. We are taking you through the process of breaking a horse that literally arrived at the yard a couple of days before from the sales, and through the sort of, well, what we do on the first day, which eventually ends up with him, having a rider on his back. So it's a different sort of insight. I think M3, who produced it all, have done a really fantastic job. And yeah, I'm interested to see people's reactions to it, as we had a lot of fun doing it.
It's not a part of the industry that we see all too often. So I think it's good to get an insight into how that works. So that's landing on Tuesday. Keep an eye out for that. The Other Side of the Fence with Ollie Murphy and our very own Charlie Poste. Steve Jones and Donn McClean are also along. I'll be getting their thoughts on the racing with Charlie very shortly. A reminder to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also give us up to a 5-star review via your preferred podcast app, and head to insights.matchbook.com for a recap of all of the podcast best bets. We'll also be doing a charity bet from here on in every Saturday for racing welfare on that Matchbook account that we have that we use for the watch-alongs. So hopefully raising more money for racing welfare. And by and large, over the last 10 weeks, sorry, my dog choking, if you call it that. By and large, that's what he thinks to the best bets. It's been profitable the last 10 weeks, and the best bet's been doing well. So good stuff. Okay. Let's get stuck into the first race preview, which is the Sprint Cup. Depth to it this year, 17 declared. Minzal is 5.2, Naval Crown 7.2, Kinross 9.0, Emiratiana 10.0, 10.5 for Rohan, 11.0 and big at the rest. And Donn, I'll come to you first of all. We might be lacking a sprinting star currently in the UK and Ireland, but as a result of that, we've got a nice open race.
It's really competitive, isn't it, Tom? We have to start with Emiratiana because he's the winner last year. He sprang a surprise when he won it last year, and actually I thought his run at Nunthorpe was very good. He came from the back and he did well to get as close as he got to Highfield Princess, I thought, given that he had to come from the rear. So that should have set him up nicely for a return to Haydock. And you have to think that Kevin Ryan would have had this race bang on his radar from early in the season. But I just think Naval Crown, look, Minzal is a worthy favourite. He was very good in winning the Hackwood Stakes, and he backed that up with a good run in the Prix de Geest. But Crown, he was disappointing in the Maurice de Geest, but he was kind of up with the pace towards the near side. And his only other run at Deauville was in the Prix Jean Prat last year, and he was disappointing there as well. So I think you can allow him that. If you go back to his win in the Platinum Jubilee, that was a massive run. His run in the July Cup, when he was only just caught by alcohol free, he set a fast pace that day towards the far side and just run by the filly. So he's a top class sprinter. I suppose that there is some rain forecast. I don't know what the lads are thinking, but I'm kind of operating on the basis of maybe just grand on the easy side of good, and that should be fine for Naval Crown because he ran a massive race in the Jersey Stakes last year on soft ground over 7 furlongs. But I think 6 furlongs is his trip now, and I just think he's the classiest sprinter in the race. I think he should probably be closer to Minzal in the market that he is, and Emiratiana was my starting point. I thought he was going to be my bet, but I just think that he's closer to Naval Crown in the market than I thought he should have been. I think Naval Crown has a better chance than their respective odds suggest. So for me, he's a bet. Kinross is a danger as well, but I think dropping back down from 7 to 6 furlongs, I think he's obviously a 7 furlong specialist, and I think he's a wee bit tighter in the market as well than he should be. So I think the value for me is Naval Crown.
Okay, Steve Jones, what do you think? Open race.
Yeah, it's all the same suspects that we've seen all season, really. That's why I'm sort of chancing a bit of new blood. There's a lot of pace in this race. Art Power, Brad the Brief, Go Bears Go, Flaming Rib, Dubawi, Legend. They all kind of, even Naval Crown likes to be up there. So it's got to be run at a proper gallop, I think. And it might, although the pace does tend to hold up at Haydock, I'm going for something that is going to like the fast pace in Castle Star, who's trained in Ireland by Fozzie Stack and had really good form last season in top races, was second in the middle part, was a little bit unlucky in the middle part behind Perfect Power. But he's that kind of horse. He does need things to drop right, and they didn't quite got pushed wide, and Newmarket's never the ideal track for a horse that does like to come from off the pace. But he travels really, really well, this horse. And before that, he'd been running in good group races behind Go Bears Go, and that he's definitely got the ability to win a top-class sprint. He's only had one run this season. That was obviously just last month. Well, sorry, back in July. We're in September now, aren't we? And that he was over 5 furlongs, which is better form. Last year was over 6. He travelled really well again, but he's just desperate in need of the run. And he's had like a month and a half now further in training. So you'd think the fitness was be at his peak. And it, 26.0? Is that what we're talking? 23.0? I think he's got a really good chance of, 26.0. So, yeah, it's a chancey one. And he could have had a better draw. He's drawn right on the wing, but he's going to drop in anyway and follow the pace. So, yeah, I mean, there's loads in there that I respect, like Rohan's another one that comes from off the pace, who another's got the ability to win a race like this. But with the top, the ones at the top of the betting don't excite me too much. So I've taken a chance with Castle Star winning place.
You put up a 26.0 shot. I'm doing the same win and place with Flaming Rib, who seems a bit forgotten off the back of his run last time, which was poor. He was sent off at 9.5 in the betting, and at one point was shorter than that. And the race, it's probably too much of an excuse for him to say the race developed completely away from him, but he was drawn furthest away from the pace and where the race developed. So he was well beaten. Maybe if he'd have been drawn the other side, have been well beaten as well. But there's an excuse in there. And if you go back to his Commonwealth Cup run, then you definitely give him a shout on the basis of that. And he's, 3-year-olds got a good record in this. They're on it 4 years on the bounce. Then Hello Yumzane won it again a couple of years later. I think that's right. And without an older horse star in there, I do think he is one of the 3-year-olds that's got a good chance. One of the 3 in the race for Hugo Palmer, but he's just forgotten off the back of an excuses run at Newmarket in the July Cup last time. Charlie, who's yours?
I've gone with a horse that I've been with all year, really. Kinross. I was with him when he was unlucky in the Lennox, and then obviously when he got his just desserts at York last time. He ran well in the Platinum Jubilee behind Naval Crown, and he ran well in the sprint on Champions Day. So I think Donn is completely right. He is a 7 furlong specialist, but I think he's still well able to compete at this level. And he's drawn near the pace. Art Power, I think, is drawn alongside him. And as well, if we do get a decent amount of rain, he's going to be well suited by a bit more cut in the ground. And I just think he's a thoroughly likeable horse. And at 9 or 10.0, I'd be with him win and place, because I just think he's guaranteed to run his race and be there or thereabouts.
Those are your 4 then, 4 different horses: Flaming Rib, Naval Crown, Castle Star, Kinross for the Sprint Cup. We go back in time then to the Ascendant Stakes, where we're not putting up many horses, unsurprisingly, because Naval Power is a very warm order towards the top of the betting at 1.5, Seeking Gold 6.4, Lion Award 12.0. From the document we filled out, I'm not sure anybody makes Naval Power a bet at 1.5 for all we all think he's going to win. I do seriously, he looks a proper Guineas horse in the making. I was mega impressed with what he did at Ascot last time. And he should take all the beating. Does anybody have anything that they desperately want to say on this?
Just the red cut up a bit. Top Ferrari is out, and Sunset's out. And I suppose the runner-up at Ascot, Waiting All Night, was pretty well beaten since. So I wouldn't be going in at long odds on. But as you say, the way that he did it, he couldn't have done much more than he did. So he's just an exciting horse. And yeah, for me, he's one just to watch.
And would anybody at this stage of the season have an anti-post Guineas interest, still double figures knocking around, or is that just too far away?
Too far away for me. I think there's way more to be seen yet.
Yeah, fair enough. That's that. I've got no interest in spending much longer on the Ascendant Stakes. No bets going up there. Naval Power, very much the one to beat. We move on to the Superior Mile Stakes. So this is the 145 at Haydock. And prices are as follows. Reach for the Moon 2.26, Dart Shift 6.4, Bayside Boys 6.6, Triple Time 7.8, Brunch 12.0, bigger prices the rest. Steve, back to you.
Yeah, I don't like the favourite at all.
No, me neither.
Moon. And they keep going in on this horse. I know that he last season he was seen as a potential classic horse. Even a potential Derby horse. He got beat first time up at Sandown, and then he got beat at 2-5 at Ascot over 1 mile and 2, dropping back in distance again with a visor on. Later on, it might be revealed he might be my lay of the day. I think there's a huge amount of pace in here. I think because Reach of the Moon likes to race prominently. Marie's Diamond is a confirmed front runner. Taquerid Bay likes to go forward. And I was tempted with Perotto, because I think this horse, when he does get the right setup of a decent gallop, then he is quite classy. But I've come down on Dark Shift, who is a horse I really like, who's only a 4-year-old. Was mega impressive, I thought, in the Hunt Cup, considering how competitive that race is and how well it's worked out with Tempest, who was back in third there, who's won a couple of Group 3s since. And Dark Shift, although he's getting a few pounds for him, the way he went through that race was like a group horse. And he went close in the 7 furlong race on King George Day at Ascot as well. But he is better at a mile. He's going to get that today and or this weekend. And I think he's just he got every chance of being up to this level in a race that, if you take Reach for the Moon out, who's also don't really like, then is it going to take a huge amount of winning? I'm not sure it will. So I think Dark Shift is quite a good bet.
I'm just laying Reach for the Moon for all the reasons that you've said, so I'll join you in that lay later on. Charlie, what do you want to add to Steve?
Yeah, make that 3 of us joining in the lay for sure. I mean, I'd also think Bayside Boy didn't look that straightforward as well at times. I thought the one that maybe is the interesting one is Triple Time. He looked very good. He was talked about as a Guineas horse last year, but I was wary of the layoff, and I wondered if watching him that maybe he might want further than this mile. So again, I came down with Dark Shift. I think he's thoroughly likable. He's won in small fields as well, for all that he's got fantastic big field handicap form, and yeah, I think his level is probably shows him to be a group horse in the making, and I think this looks a good opportunity with again the top 2 in the market all reaching for headgear as well for the first time.
Trevor says, am I the only one watching the Best Tipping Show on YouTube live? No, you're not, Trevor, because Wayne says, anybody think that Marie's Diamond is overpriced? 2 of his last 3 runs aren't far off the best form in this race. I did think he was overpriced purely because I thought he was possibly the most likely pace angle, and I was tempted to put him up as a trade, but I'm not going to. But that wasn't lost on me. Wayne, definitely. Donn.
Yeah, I'm in the Dark Shift camp as well. I have been a couple of times for better and for worse along the way. And yeah, I echo the lads' thoughts on Reach for the Moon. Like the Hampton Court Stakes is wow. Claymore was well beaten at York there last time. King Max was beaten. Cressa did win, but just thought Reach for the Moon, as Steve was saying, he's a fashionable horse. He was really high profile at Ascot, especially that he was beaten during the whole Frankie Dettori, John Gosden thing. And yeah, he's adored and he's owned by the Queen. So I just think he's a horse is over. I think he'll drift actually. I don't think he'll be as short on the day as he is now. So that might be an angle if you do like Reach for the Moon. But yeah, Dark Shift. He's just in a really improved improving horse. Now, a lot of his progression has been at Ascot, but I think, well, that's because 4 of his last 5 runs have been at Ascot, and Ascot does tend to foster course specialists, but he was impressive winning at Nottingham over a mile earlier in the season. And I just think it's more down to the fact that Ascot is where he's run, and he's just an improving horse rather than Ascot has been the source of his progression. So, like, even on I know you're up from a handicap into 3, it's not that big a leap. He doesn't have much to find on official ratings. He was into the race in good form. The race is probably going to be run to suit. I think he is better, as Steve said, as well, over a mile than over 7 furlongs. I did try and make the case for him being a 7 furlong horse earlier in the season. But yeah, I think he's got lots in his favour, and I can see him shortening as well on the day.
I just want to bring in tissue prices comment there. High tissue prices. What a coincidence that that's what you're called and you're involved in betting. You say, what's the ROI, guys, on these shows? Where can I find out? So we do keep a record of the best bets. That's what we keep the record of. Not of every single horse that goes up. Sometimes there are more than one horse that get put up by an individual in one race, and it can be ground dependent, etc. And frankly, that's an awful lot of work. But we do keep a record of all the best bets, which we did put up last week for the guys that were on the show for the last 9 or 10 weeks. So they're not published there anywhere, but we are open with it, and the best bets are very much in profit. So that's what we keep the record of, but we don't do it for every single bet that goes up, just to make you fully aware of that. But thanks for the question. Everyone's had a go at the 145 at Haydock, right?
Yep.
Good. All right. Let me remind you of the welcome offer. So £30 welcome offer. Money back as a free bet if your first bet loses. It's for you. Bonus code INSIGHTS30, INSIGHTS30. Place your first bet. If it loses, you get your money back as a free bet, your stake back as a free bet up to £30. The full terms and conditions are on the Matchbook website. 18 plus. Be gamble aware. As I say every week, it is well worth doing, because if you don't have a Matchbook account, you'll see that you're likely to be getting better odds, whatever sport you're betting on, because of the nature of the exchange. So you get a bet, you have a bet up to £30. If it doesn't cop, you get your money back as a free bet up to your stake, up to £30. Right, let's move on to the September stakes. So 2 shouts here for Dubai Honour and 2 shouts for Gear Up, which is interesting. 2.5 for Dubai Honour, Mostadaf 4.3, Solid Stone 8.6, Gear Up 8.0. Charlie and I will go first then. I'm pretty sweet on this horse, Charlie, Dubai Honour. I put him up last time when I thought he was actually, he had a chance of winning the without the favourite mark, the Jumbo International. It didn't happen. But I'm not worried about him going over a mile and a half again, because they've always suggested that that's what he wants to do. And if you look at a couple of his, not necessarily the York run where he just flattened out, but the runs prior to Maydown and the Shima Classic, I thought he shaped as though he would get the mile and a half. And the main reason I want to back him is because his closest market rival is Mostadaf, who I definitely don't think wants a mile and a half, and I'm not a huge fan of over this distance. So Dubai Honour, I thought was still a fair bet at the prices at 2.5. Charlie, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I completely agree, mate. I mean, I think, he is the one in this race with sort of proven Group 1 class, whether he's quite up to win the Group 1, but he's up to being very competitive. And the fact that Solid Stone, Gear Up and Mostadaf have to concede penalties to him as well, to me on the figures makes him come out clear best. And like you say, I think the up in trip is no problem at all. And I think, again, the all-weather should suit him well. So, yeah, at the price, I actually think for a horse with to my mind, a class advantage. And like I say, getting weight off most of his market rivals, it makes him an attractive bred at 2.5 or whatever we're offering him at.
Yeah, I think he could be shorter than that, genuinely. Donn, Steve, Donn, first of all, are you particularly against Dubai Honour, or just think there's better value to be had with Gear Up?
A little bit of both, Tom, actually, yeah. I'm a bit disappointed that Dubai Honour didn't beat Sabusker. I know it was his first run back since Dubai, and he was only just beaten, but it was Sabusker. And Sabusker is a talented horse, but it was his first win in almost 2 years or over 2 years. So, and then I do worry a little bit about the trip. There's lots of pace in his pedigree, and I'm not sure. I think 10 furlongs is, he's proven over that. It's a little bit of a step into the unknown, and his one try at the trip, he was well beaten at Maidan. So yeah, I think I'm happy to be against him. I agree with you on Mustadaf, but yeah, Gear Up. it's kind of more that I think Gear Up is over. Like, he's a Group 1 winner as a juvenile when he was Mark Johnson. He didn't win last year as a 3-year-old at all, but it's taken him a little while to get his act together now for Joseph O'Brien. But he was good at Goran Park. He ran well at the Curragh then in the Group 2 race in the Curragh Cup, and then last time stepped back down from the Curragh Cup trip back down to a 1.5 miles. I thought he was very good in the Ballyrowan Stakes. He was given a super ride by Dylan Brown McMonigal. He kicked him on, and he had enough in reserve to get home. From Cleveland, who'd won the Chester Cup and had run well at Royal Ascot as well. And he had a good progressive young horse of Paddy Toomey's Beamish back in 3rd place as well. So I thought that was a good run. I think probably, maybe the market hasn't put that in yet. He goes into the race on a high. I think this 1.5 mile trip is a good trip for him. Kempton's obviously an unknown, but he does stay well, and I can see Dylan Brown McMonigal getting him into a prominent position from early and kicking on again and making it a test of stamina at the trip. So yeah, I think he's overpriced.
Steve.
Yeah, I'm not convinced about Dubai Honour at the distance. I must say, I thought there was a chance. He was too short, considering there was still a concern. When you consider his sire, Pride of Dubai's had 40 runners beyond 10 furlongs, and I think he's at 3 winners. So I'm not totally convinced. Mostadaf the same, and I'm also with Dubai Honour. Tasman Bay stepping up in distance. Will he want to lead at a fast pace? Solid Stone might lead, but I don't see it being a hugely strong pace. And around Kempton, he just might have a bit too much, because he does like to be held up to by Honour. He might just have a bit too much ground to make up. And I think Gear Up will get first run on him. And if that's the case, he stays really well, Gear Up. And he might be able to hold on. It wasn't a race I had a strong opinion on, but I thought the makeup of the race and the way it's likely to be run might just suit Gear Up a little bit better, and that's why I came down on him.
Okay, we move on to the 220 at Haydock Park. 2 shouts there for Gear Up, 2 shouts for Dubai Honour. The 220 at Haydock Park has Tamilla at 6.6, Adjuvant 7.2, Thundering 8.8, Inverness 9.8. 4 different shouts here. And Don, you can make the case first of all.
Yeah, Spadecaster, I think, Tom. I think he's a decent price. He's a really likely race horse, and like his run the last day at Haydock was his first run back after a short break, and I thought he did better than the bare form suggests. He stumbled on leaving the stalls and was playing catch up from early. He stayed on well down towards the near side to take 4th place behind Nathaniel Green, and that race has been working out really well. The runner-up Givalotto has won since, won really impressively by 5 lengths, and has went up £5 for the Haydock run, and he's gone up another £7 for in the last day at Newmarket. So he's progressing. Percy Jones as well. He's won since. He's gone up from a mark of 80 to a mark of 84. And Spadecaster hasn't run since. The winner, Nathaniel Green, hasn't run since. I just think it's a race that it looked like a strong race at the time, and the indications that we have so far back up. Spadecaster again, his first run back after a short break. He's racing off the same mark of 81. He's proven at the track he won't mind a little bit of rain. The 1.6 miles is a good trip for him. He was stepping up from 1.2 miles, then from 1.5 miles the last day, and he saw it at the trip well. And Rafe Beckett's fitting blinkers for the first time, which to me is not a negative. It does. If that can bring out even further improvement, then he could be well handicapped horse. He's only had 6 runs, so there's every chance he'll step forward again. And yeah, I think he's been a wee bit ignored by the market.
The first of 4 different shouts going up then. So that is Don's shout with Spycaster. Charlie Sarson's Risk, who's 10.5.
Yeah, a competitive race. I definitely hear Don's shout there as well. He was one of the ones on my short list. But yeah, I just came down with the source of Ian Williams. He seems to have clicked all of a sudden. Disappointed in his first couple of handicaps, or seemingly it didn't happen for him. And then he won well the last twice. And I thought he was tidy enough winner at Newmarket the last day, and he's only gone up 4 for it last weekend. Like, he's banging form. There's not many better trainers of a staying handicapper on the flat than Ian Williams, and And yeah, I think the mile 6 should suit him well. I mean, he tried it at Doncaster and was a little bit disappointing, but like I say, all of a sudden he seems to have hit a rich vein of form and things seem to have clicked for him. And again, I think this track could suit him really well as well. And he just looks an exposed young horse that's really got his act together and is on a roll here. And I can't believe they'd be turning him out a week later if they weren't very happy with the condition that he's in. And yeah, I think there's scope. There's still scope in this mark for him to win more races.
Biggest price of the lot is Steve's selection, Irish Lullaby, 13.0.
Yeah, another Irish Raider. I thought this horse did really well to win at Galway last time over 1 mile and 4. Was kind of taken across the track a little bit in the closing stage. It showed a real good attitude and clearly stays really, really well. So going up to 1 mile and 6 is going to help Irish Lullaby. Jesse Harrington and Frankie Dettori. So I thought it was you could fancy no end of horses in there. Sarson's Risk was certainly one that I thought had a good chance as well. So I agree with Charlie there. But Irish Lullaby for me with the step up in distance.
And I'm with a horse who I think's got just about the best collection of form in the race. If you go back to he won at Newmarket, and if you go back to Goodwood, where he didn't get a run, a bit like Solcombe who came out in Bolton, actually travelled better than that horse on that occasion. Then went up in trip, and he was off it a bit earlier than ideal. I know that the winner came from way back and did well to do so. KS Chorister was up there throughout, and then Adjuvant came from a long way back and was no match for Solcombe, who came from last to first. But I still think he's got scope off a mark of 90, just £2 higher than that run. The Secret State Solcombe form is just about the best on offer. And he does look as though he wants to stay at this sort of trip. Benoit de la Sayette is back on, who was on board for his last win. So I thought at the prices, he was a fair shout, win and place, definitely, for Adjuvant at 7.2. The London Mile Series final handicap is up next. Kempton, and always traditionally a big field race, tricky to find the winner. First View 6.2, Spirit of the Base 7.0, Morgan Ferry 7.0, Dutch Decoy 8.4, My Mate Ted 9.8, Cabinet Maker 9.4, and then into the slightly bigger prices or double figures. I think we've got 4 different horses here as well. Charlie, Cabinet Maker win and place.
Yeah, I found this tricky, and so this wouldn't be like a really confident or strong selection for me. But yeah, I came down with Cabinet Maker. He looks a really progressive horse for the Johnsons. He definitely markedly better on the all-weather than he is on turf. I mean, he was, I think his hat-trick bid was denied at Wolverhampton. But again, I'm not sure Wolverhampton suits his run style. He tends to get behind, and Kempton seems to suit him ideally with the long straight and the cutaway. And yeah, he just looks, again, he also doesn't seem to win very far. I think he was only up sort of 5 for his last win. And again, once he got there, he won a neck, but he was really strong at the line, and he got a lightweight, Franny Norton booked for the yard. And again, a couple of the ones at the top of the market, Spirit of the Bay, I'm not sure is completely straightforward, swishes a tail, hangs a bit. And First View, again, hadn't seen since July, and they reached for the cheek pieces, which I don't know if that's a positive or a negative, but I mean, I took it as a slight negative. And again, I just thought Cabinet Maker just looked the sort of horse that he looks nailed on to run his race anyway. Like I say, he's good over the course and distance, good on the all-weather, and just seems a progressive horse at a reasonably sort of low level.
So I'm putting up Spirit of the Bay. She is definitely not straightforward. Like you say, she swishes her tail. They put cheek pieces on, which has to be a plus, because any headgear, I think, is going to be a plus. But on the plus side, I like horses sort of this time of the year, back end of the summer, returning to the all-weather, having had some goes on turf. So on turf, she's 2 from 11. She's 2 from 5 on the all-weather. Both wins have come over course and distance. In fact, her last run over course and distance was probably the least impressive of them. But she was hampered, and she tends to be held up, and it was a 11-run race there where they didn't go quick enough for her, I don't think. She's been fine on the turf, but I mean, she was only beaten a nose last time, so she's nearly won of late on the turf. But I'm looking forward to seeing her back on back on a synthetic surface over a mile as well, because I don't think she quite saw it out last time. So, and Clive Cox, I quite like him when he can have a good autumn on the all weather, having had a summer with horses who previously won on the all weather. That's my angle with her win and place. Donn.
I like Chari, not with huge conviction, but while the race has been won by the favourite the last 2 years, it is a race that can throw up results. And I just thought On a Session was interesting at a bit of a price. Look, he's 6 years old, he's looking fairly exposed, but he is in the form of his life this year. He won at Musselburgh 3 runs ago, then at Galway in the Ahanora Handicap, a race in which he's traditionally run well. He ran well when he was with Aidan Fogarty as well, and since he's joined David and David and Nicola Barron. He was only just beaten by Current Option, but stiff 7 furlongs on soft ground. I think he seems to be equally adept over a mile and over 7 furlongs, but probably a stiff 7 at a fast pace is probably his optimum, but he should be okay over a mile at Kempton, which he's proven before he can operate over a mile, over an easy mile at least. He hasn't won an all weather yet, but he did run well in his only visit to Kempton in February last year when he wasn't beaten far over the course and distance. And his last run, he was beaten at Chester, but he was wide that day. So it just wasn't run to suit. So I think you can forgive him that. I think a bigger field, fast pace, and in a race that in which you can argue the case for many. I just think he's a horse that goes in there in good form, and probably because of his age and because he's had lots of opportunities, he's a decent price. So yeah, I think On a Session is interesting.
11.5 for On a Session. Again, biggest price of the lot, Steve Jones, the Horse Watcher's horse at 13.5.
Yeah, I think this has got a really good chance, Baldomero, for Mick Appleby. Freddie Larson is a good apprentice jockey, takes £5 off. Now, Baldomero hasn't run since June, but that is quite a good thing, I think. And this horse likes the all-weather. It's won at Dundalk for Joseph O'Brien before joining Mick Appleby, and won at Kempton over a mile and 2 back in March. But I think is probably certainly in a race like this where they should go a nice enough gallop, and Baldomero should be able to get a nice position from stall 3. I think Baldomero is better at a mile. And you go back to his run when he was beaten ahead by Proclaimer over this course and distance. Well, Proclaimer is prolific on the all-weather. And I think he'd already won 5 in the autumn last season going into that race, and won 2 after that. So he was, not only was he a well-handicapped horse, he was thriving on the all-weather. So to get so close to him was really good effort. And when we last saw him, he had a few runs on the turf, and he wasn't far behind Dark Shift actually at Nottingham, but he is better on the all-weather, and he did look like he needed a break when we last saw him. He's had that. He goes well fresh. I think he's well handicapped, or well enough handicapped for a race like this. And so he's got a lot going for him. Winning place, what is he, about 15?
It's on the bottom of your screen there, 13.5.
13.5, yeah, winning place. I think he's a cracking bet. I'm really expecting a big run out of him. I know this is a competitive race with big stables represented, but when you come to the all-weather, come to anything, there's no better than Mick Appleby, in my opinion. So, Baldomero.
I like it when Steve fancies one at price. 13.5 for Baldomero, win and place. The Old Borough Cup then has the aforementioned Salcombe in it heading the betting, who went up a whopping 9 on a stone for that York success. 3.1, Contact 7.2, Yukon Glen 7.8, Evaluation 8.8, Rajinsky 14.5. Bigger prices there on in. Charlie, you can lead us off because you're with Salcombe. I very nearly was as well. Just about a fair enough price.
Yeah, just about. I mean, look, as again, it's a pretty boring selection, but I mean, look, he should have won at Goodwood. He got too far back, and then he put that right with any amount in hand at York. And yes, he went up a stone, but I think it was one of those situations where he probably deserved to, was the authority that he won that ultra competitive handicap with. And again, I like the comments afterwards from William Haggis. He's talking about him as a potential group horse. And I think, again, this track, there's no concerns with the track. He's won at the track already. And he gets a chunk of weight for age as well, being a 3-year-old against these older horses. And he just looks seriously progressive. And yeah, I mean, 3.0 or in and around that, I actually thought was was just about big enough to make him quite an attractive bet in what is an ultra competitive race. I'm not taking anything away from the competition, but he just, I mean, like Yukon Glen and horses like that are group performers, but this looks like a young horse on the upgrade that I think could very easily be a group horse in the making, Tom.
Steve Jones.
Yeah, obviously Solcombe's. Sorry, I'm muting because it sounds like someone's doing the hoovering on my computer.
80 grand. Another big price, Steve.
Yeah, Solcombe is obviously the standout, and everyone can see that he's a really progressive horse. And like Charlie said, he's gone up a stone at York, but it was hard to argue he didn't deserve to. But in a race like this, I'm just a bit worried for Solcombe that at Haydock, it's not often easy to come from off the pace. He does miss the break sometimes. And I didn't see a strong gallop in this. And that's why I'm going for last year's winner, Island Brave, who made most of the running to win it last year. And this year, he has slipped down the weight. So he's a few pounds lower than he was last year. And he's got Gina Mangan on board, who Gina Mangan's been around a little bit. She claims £5, but this season, she has been sensational. I think she's had 7 or 8 winners in the last fortnight. So she's riding really well. And Island Brave hasn't been able to show its best form, I'm sure, this season. It ran in the Shergar Cup when he was held up by the Spanish jockey, who didn't look the best on display, shall we say. And was only beaten just over a length in that race. So I thought that was a good hint that he was coming back to his form. He'd previously run in the Northumberland Plate when, again, he didn't start very well and got too far back for him. And before that, he'd had a spell in Dubai. So I think he might just be running back into form. And I'm expecting Gina Mangan to ride Island Brave a little bit more positively than he has of late. And with the absence of any real front runners, I think he's definitely got a chance of retaining the trophy, if not sneaking into the places. I don't see a huge amount of horses passing him in the closing stages if he's allowed to, if they're up front is the place to be, because he stays very well. So Island Brave winning place at 17.5. Wow.
Big old price. Donn.
Yeah, look, obviously you have to respect Solcombe. I suppose one of my worries about him is that it's only 2 weeks ago that he had that big run in the Melrose, and it's just, I don't know, he's up a stone short enough, and that just maybe 2 weeks is long enough, but I think maybe 3 weeks would be a wee bit better, just to give you a bit more security. But I like Contact anyway. I think he's a progressive horse. He's been in really good form this season. He won twice earlier in the season, including at Haydock, where he was a wee bit keen early on in a race at the end of May and a handicap there, and he did well. He kept on well. That was over 1.5 miles, but he stayed 1.6 miles well the last day. I thought he did well in the Duke of Edinburgh at Ascot as well, when Candleford ran out a seriously impressive winner, but he did well to come from the back. It was a race in which it was difficult to come from the back, and thought he did well to get up for third. And then last time in the 1.6 miles handicap at Newmarket, that was a strange race. It was a kind of a messy race. He was on the near side rail just behind the winner, Soapy Stevens, and Soapy Stevens got out and got going, and it just took him a while to get racing room, and he stayed on really well towards the end. He only finished 5th, but he was only beaten about 1.5 lengths. So that, for me, that was a big run. I think he can be marked up a wee bit on that. Back at Haydock, and he's only £6 higher than he was when he won at Haydock back at the end of May. So I think that's fair. And he sees out the trip well. If he can just settle a wee bit better through his race, then that could allow him to step forward again. But yeah, I think he's got plenty in his favour.
I'm going to go for Evaluation, who was a nose away from a 100-grand bonus in the Sunday series. And Jason Hart rode him that day, positively. I think like he thought he was going to win the race, and it was desperate that he didn't. And the horse didn't help him. He ran around a little bit late on when he hit the front, and he probably just needed to be a bit cuter. I still think he's got plenty in hand. I'm a huge fan of Solcombe, but I take the point that it's quick enough. And whilst I'm not against him, I'd rather play Evaluation, win and place, because I still think he's got something in hand. Moving on to a couple of races at Ascot. So we're going to do the National Racehorse Week handicap first of all. and a good looking one it is too. This is the 310. Bring up the prices for you. So some of the usual suspects in there. Inver Park is 5.8 course and distance winner. Fresh course and distance winner last time is 6.2. Aratus 8.6. Shining Blue 12.0. Space Tracker 14.0. Golden Voice 15. Tactical Star of Orion 16. And bigger prices there on in. Steve, we agree miraculously. Shining Blue, lightly raced. I think the straight 7 here will suit. Wide last time and prominent where it paid to just come from a bit off it. Yeah, and he's got all-weather form. I think he could go pretty well here.
Yeah, leave me something to talk about. You've said everything. I thought that I thought last time at York as well, he was beaten when he was hampered, but it sort of accentuated the distance that he would have been beaten in the closing stages. And that was a hot race with all those horses that had been running in the good mile handicaps, like the Golden Mile at Goodwood, Blue for You, Escobar, Orban. And he was only just behind those. And like you said, he was sat a little bit too close to the pace, even though the pace was holding up very well at York at the Ebor meeting. They went really hard in that race. And before that, he had an impossible task from stall 20 in the Golden Mile. So he just put a line through that, and he'd won his previous 3 races. So he is unexposed. He has, he's just got a really good chance here.
Yeah, 2 shots for Shining Blue. Charlie?
Yeah, I've gone with Aratus. He used to be very, very free going horse at Clive Cox's, and seems to get better with racing. And he's run very well in the Victoria Cup, the Hunt Cup, the International, all obviously at Ascot over the straight track. And he's not really had always the best of luck with the draw, or where he's ended up choosing to race. And she played golf with his owner, Adrian Butler, the other day. And you know, Clive Cox is convinced he's going to win one of these big ones. It's going to drop for him one day, and they're just going to keep pitching up. And like I say, hope they have their moment. And yeah, I think, you know, potentially Saturday could be that. I think the draw is okay. I think, you know, and there's pace around him and fancied horse around him. And also, I just wondered whether Kevin Stott might be quite an interesting booking for this horse. He's 100% for the yard. I mean, only 1 ride, but it could just be an interesting angle of sort of fresh pair of hands on him. And Kevin Stott's riding incredibly well. He's a rider I like a lot. And Aratus, I suppose he is exposed in this sort of company, but like I say, I think he has enough latent ability to win one of these big races when everything drops right for him. And fingers crossed that's this Saturday.
That's Aratus at 8.4 win and place. Donn sitting this one out, so I'll come to you next with the Lavazza Stakes. Donn, we'll have a look at the market first of all. It looks like a Dubai middle distance handicap with all the Godolphin runners in there. 4.8 first ruler. La Yakel is 5.6. Fantastic 6.8. Chairman 8.4. Mandobi is 9.6. Bigger prices there on in. Who are you with, Donn?
Yeah, first ruler. Ryan Moore riding for Charlie Appleby. That doesn't happen very often.
No.
I looked it up 5 times in the last 5 years. So yeah, but look, it's I think first ruler, there was an awful lot to like about his performance the last day at Ascot. They didn't go great.
What's the strike rate, Donn? What's the strike rate? That's the key.
20%. One
solid.
So it could get a lot better. Could go up to 33%. Yeah, like just the way that he finished off his race, it was a small enough field, but they didn't go at a great pace, and he stayed on really strongly. He only got up and won by a neck from Etonian, but Etonian ran pretty well at Goodwood there next time. And look, he's a really good horse in terms of half to and I think to step up to 1.5 miles, the way that he raced the last day, the strength with which he went to the line, then that should be a positive for him. And the fact that he's got form at the course as well, another positive. Look, there are a couple of lightly raced horses in there against him, but he is one of them, and he's about, what, a 4.5 shot. I think that's fair.
4.8, yeah. Steve, you agree?
I do, yeah. I just I went through this and just kept coming back to first ruler. A really nice unexposed progressive horse who won last time over a mile and 2, but I don't think he's going to have any problem stepping up to a mile and 4. He's certainly got the pedigree for it and the run style. And yeah, I just think he's very, very solid.
First ruler is 4.8. I'll chance Al Nafir. It's very small win and place, but I just thought he didn't get home last time perfectly. I think it's dropping back to a mile and a half. He's lightly raced, just needs to settle better. Harry Davis takes off 3, who's been going well for Charlie Appleby this year. And if Dubai Handicap's ready to go by, he doesn't always win it with his first string. So I'll chance Al Nafir. Charlie?
Again, chancing Mandobi, who I think I put up at Glorious Goodwood, where he slotted in a race behind Secret State, where I think it was probably more suited to be in and around the pace. Again, he got trapped wide at Royal Ascot. Just interesting that they go for the first time tongue tie, as in maybe they think that he's not always looked straightforward. Sometimes he goes down early, and whether the tongue tie can just help him relax a little bit more and sort of race, spread out his race a little bit more evenly. Danny Tudhope's on board as well. I think he's very good round Ascot. He's very good anywhere. And I think he has a 30% strike rate for William Haggis when they team up together. And again, I think he's also with plenty of ability. And if he just gets the right sort of ride and the tongue strap helps a bit, again, I don't see why he isn't sort of up to exploiting this sort of mark. I think he has enough talent to do that, but it would be a small stakes win and place for me, this.
That is your 9 feature races preview. So any other bets now? Couple of curveballs here. I love this. It was only this morning, Don, I was going through the Ulster to Sarawich.
What did you come up with, Tom? Peregrine Run. You had to come up with Peregrine Run, I'd say. 12-year-old, good ground.
I came up with Sheshi Brid.
She is hybrid. Was that the one? It sounds like.
Oh, great. Will you put me away? Oh, no. I tried to be all clever. Oh, shit.
You'd love to see Peregrine Run winning this. He's 12 years old. Peter Fahey is in tremendous form and had another winner yesterday at Clonmel. But she is hybrid.
Sheshi Brid. Jesus.
Yeah, you can argue that.
When we had should have been R-ing. Should have been a ring. No, Steve, I know you want to ask a question, Steve, and you can't because Don's making a selection. So shut up. Come on, Don.
So much for the case for She Is Hybrid. That's secondary now. In a nutshell, no means horses are in good form. He had Luna Power win yesterday. I was actually giving female approach a chance in the race as well. Chris Hayes rides her. Colin Keane, who you'd imagine would have had the choice, rides She Is Hybrid. And she's just been in really good form. She's won twice over hurdles recently. And her run at Tremor, her last run on the last second Gibraltar, that was a really good run. She kept on well. She had Dark Voyager behind her that day, and Dark Voyager was in front of her in the market for today's race. So I think 2.25 miles on the flat should be fine for her. She's still potentially well handicapped on the mark of 77. She's got a hurdles rating now of 116. So with the yards horses in form, I think she's interesting.
Let me give you a price for She Is Hybrid, who is around about 4.0. Don, Steve, what did you want to say?
Well, there was a lad who's been a producer for Sis and some of the bookmakers called Pickles, who's a good lad. But he was doing a bit of presenting, a bit of voiceover for one of the bookies. And he said, and it was Fields of Athenry, but there was it was all ran on. And he said, 4-1, Fields of Fat Henry. When you look at it, you can see why he did it. I always thought that would be a great name for us, Fields of Fat Henry. So nice one, Pickles.
I love that. That story is so good. Steve's told it twice on the Match But Betting podcast. But it's probably about 2 years since
I'll be telling everyone about Sheshi Bridge next time anyway.
Sheshi Bridge. I'm just flagging up 10-10-20 who runs tomorrow in the 409 at Stratford. So this horse was subject of a podcast that we did because he was bought having failed a dope test, and Nick Luck called the trainer and didn't realise the horse was running that night. And basically, it turned out the horse was being gambled that night. It was just one of those big coincidences. The horse was back from 12 to 4-1 and absolutely dotted up. I then spoke to the trainer the following day and said, "Are you going to run at the weekend?" He said, "Yeah," because he's not going to run off. He's not going to be running off 96 again. But it's price dependent, and the market isn't priced up. I think if you're getting 2.5 or bigger, great. He might be priced up odds on, and then, well, fine. But 2.5 or bigger for 10, 10, 20 and the 4 and 9 at Stratford. Best lays. We're all reach for the moon, really. I feel like you were strongest on it, Steve, so you can make the case.
No, I just thought it's one of those horses that people keep going back and back again. And I just think has probably got a few issues. And there's all manner of horses that could win that. And I think there's going to be a strong pace that won't necessarily suit Reach for the Moon. So at the prices, I was definitely, and I take the point that Donn said that it might well be a horse that people latch onto to take on and might well drift. But at the prices at the moment, 2.26, quite happy to lay that one.
Okay, and then best bets. That's the shout of certainly Charlie, Donn, and Charlie, Steve, and myself. Best bets. Then we are going to start with you, Charlie.
Yeah, Solcombe for me in the big handicap at Haydock. I think his price is appealing enough, and like I say, if he's going to have aspirations of being a group horse, then I still think he can take this race apart. And like I say, I think track, etc., is all in his favour. Again, I respect Don's comments about the 2-week turnaround, but I've enough faith in William Haggis to think they wouldn't be trying it if they didn't think that he was suitably over his exertions at York.
Donn, your best bet for Saturday?
Yeah, I'll stick with Spaycaster in the 3-year-olds handicap at Haydock, Tom, at the price winner place for all the reasons we outlined. Course form, I think he could be well handicapped at the mark of 81, the same mark as he was off the last day when he stumbled early on and had to do plenty of running to get into a position. He's likely Racehorse, and yeah, I think he's got plenty in his favour.
Steve.
Boldemiro winning place in the London Mile, 240 at Kempton for all the reasons I said earlier. Had a nice break, goes well fresh. Liked Kempton, should get into a nice position. And although it's a competitive race, I think he's way overpriced. I think Boldemiro's got a really good chance.
I will go Flaming Rib at 26.0 in the feature, the Spring Cup. Just the run last time was the wrong side, and I think he's just a bit forgotten about based on how good his run at Ascot was prior to that. Just so you know, the best bets when we do the ROI there is calculated versus industry SP, and not necessarily the price that we put up on screen there. But yeah, keep abreast of those and how we do with the best bets, because that is what we record. Don't forget episode 2 of The Other Side of the Fence with Ollie Murphy and Charlie Post lands Tuesday. Lots of insightful stuff going in there. Steve, Donn, Charlie, thank you very much and have a lovely weekend, everyone. Sheshi Brid.
Well done, Tommy, getting through it. Not feeling great. Well done.